pleasure often enters our lives like a flame, bright and captivating, drawing us toward its warmth. The Buddha did not deny this pull. He recognized that human beings, like all sentient creatures, are naturally inclined to seek pleasant experiences. The taste of ripe fruit, the embrace of a loved one, the soothing touch of cool water on a hot day. Such moments feel undeniable, immediate, and real. In the world before awakening, these pleasures often seem like the very fabric of happiness itself. To be alive is to feel, and to feel often means to seek what delights us. Yet, the Buddha's insight was not to condemn pleasure, but to place it within a greater vision of truth. He taught that sensual delight, while captivating, is bound by conditions. Its sweetness arises, lingers briefly, and inevitably fades. For those unaware, this cycle fuels the restless search for more, like a thirsty traveler drinking salt water. The more one drinks, the more thirst grows. This allure of pleasure is not evil, it is simply natural. In recognizing its power, the Buddha invited practitioners to approach it with wisdom rather than blindness. To understand pleasure is not to renounce life, but to see clearly the mechanics of desire and satisfaction. It is a first step, looking directly at the beauty and the danger hidden in the same shining flame. Pleasure is part of the path, but not its destination. The sweetness of pleasure is inseparable from its fleeting nature. A melody that stirs the heart ends as soon as the last note fades. The warmth of the sun upon the skin shifts as clouds pass. A taste, no matter how exquisite, dissolves the moment it is swallowed. The Buddha pointed to this truth with clarity. All conditioned experiences are impermanent. Pleasurable moments, however radiant, cannot be held in place. This impermanence is not meant to breed despair, but to awaken awareness. If joy arises and passes, then clinging to it as though it were eternal only sows suffering. When one grasps at the shimmer of delight, hoping to make it last, frustration is inevitable. But when one learns to witness pleasure with mindful eyes, its transience becomes a teacher. The rise and fall of sensations reveal the delicate truth of existence. Everything changes. In meditation, practitioners observe this directly. A pleasant breath flows in, then out. A gentle ease spreads through the body, only to soften and fade. To see this cycle without resistance is to see impermanence not as a thief but as a guide. It whispers, "Do not build your house on shifting sands. Find the groundless freedom in simply knowing." By turning toward impermanence, one begins to loosen the frantic chase for permanence in pleasure. This understanding prepares the heart to meet life with balance, where delight is enjoyed but no longer clung to as the source of lasting peace. When pleasure is pursued without wisdom, it weaves the net of craving. The Buddha described this as tanha, the thirst that grips the heart, always longing, never satisfied. A sweet taste sparks the desire for another and another. A tender touch stirs the hope it will last forever, yet fear of loss lurks close by. Craving builds not only around what we have, but also around what we dream of having, turning life into a cycle of reaching, clutching, and aching. This trap is subtle. At first, it feels like joy, the thrill of new love, the excitement of gain, the comfort of pleasure. But when the moment fades, as it must, the absence feels like pain. The mind, addicted to the shimmer of delight, rushes to recreate it. Thus, pleasure without wisdom becomes the seed of suffering, chaining the heart to endless longing. The Buddha did not frame this as punishment or sin, but as cause and effect. Craving breeds dissatisfaction because it depends on unstable conditions. To see this clearly is to loosen the grip. Instead of fighting against craving or drowning in it, one can pause and ask, what is truly being sought here? Often, beneath the thirst for pleasure lies a deeper wish, to feel whole, to feel free, to feel at peace. The trap of craving loses its power when we begin to look beyond the glittering surface of pleasure, toward the stillness that craving itself obscures. The Buddha's discovery of the middle way arose from his own life. He had lived in the lap of luxury, surrounded by pleasures designed to shield him from suffering. Later, he swung to the opposite extreme, practicing harsh asceticism that nearly destroyed his body. Neither indulgence nor denial brought freedom. Only when he abandoned both extremes did clarity dawn, the path of balance. In this middle way, pleasure is not rejected as evil, nor is it worshipped as the highest good. Instead, it is placed in perspective. To enjoy a pleasant meal with gratitude, without clinging to it as a source of identity, is different from gorging in restless greed. To appreciate beauty without grasping at ownership is different from drowning in desire. Balance transforms pleasure from a chain into a simple passing joy, appreciated and released. This approach requires mindfulness. Without awareness, pleasure easily tips into indulgence, fueling attachment. Without gentleness, one may swing toward repression, fearing pleasure as a threat. The middle way honors both body and mind, recognizing that human life includes sensations, relationships, and joys. The question is not whether we experience them, but how. To walk the middle way is to dwell like a lotus in muddy waters, untouched by excess, yet nourished by life itself. Pleasure is neither enemy nor master. It becomes a companion on the journey, a reminder that freedom does not lie in extremes but in balance, where wisdom and compassion guide the heart. Pleasure, when touched with mindfulness, changes its very texture. Instead of being a spark that ignites craving, it becomes a doorway into presence. A sip of tea, for instance, can be consumed with restless distraction, barely tasted, quickly forgotten, or it can be received with full awareness, the warmth in the hands, the aroma rising, the liquid sliding across the tongue. The same tea, but in mindfulness, it reveals depth far beyond the fleeting surface. The Buddha encouraged his followers to be fully present with all experiences, pleasant or unpleasant. When pleasure is met with awareness, it is no longer simply a trigger for desire. It becomes part of the unfolding moment, appreciated without grasping. This shift turns ordinary joys into teachers. A sunset is not clung to, it is seen, absorbed, and let go. The body's ease in meditation is not mistaken for awakening. It is noticed, honored, and passed through. Mindfulness refines pleasure into clarity. Instead of asking, "How do I make this last?" the mindful heart asks, "What does this moment reveal?" In this way, even the simplest delight becomes a bridge to wisdom. Over time, practitioners discover that mindful pleasure carries a calm aftertaste, free from agitation. It does not demand repetition. It leaves the heart lighter, not heavier. Thus, mindfulness does not strip life of its joys. It enriches them, showing that true happiness is not about prolonging pleasure but about seeing deeply into its nature. At first glance, renunciation seems like a life without joy, a turning away from the sweetness of the world. Yet in the Buddha's teaching, renunciation is not grim rejection but release. It is the unclenching of the hand that once grasped at fleeting pleasures, allowing the heart to discover a subtler, quieter happiness. This joy arises from freedom. When one is no longer enslaved by the chase for the next delight, a spaciousness opens within. The mind no longer trembles at the thought of loss, nor burns with the hunger of longing. In its place grows a serenity that does not depend on conditions. The renunciate smiles not because the senses are constantly fed, but because the burden of craving has been set down. Paradoxically, renunciation often heightens appreciation for simple joys. A monk who eats one humble meal a day tastes it with gratitude. A practitioner who sits beneath a tree feels the shade as a blessing. When nothing is demanded, everything is received as gift. This is a pleasure different from indulgence, a joy not rooted in possession but in presence. The Buddha spoke of this as a happiness deeper than sensual delight, a happiness that matures into liberation. Renunciation reveals that the greatest joy may not be in holding more, but in needing less. What begins as letting go of excess becomes the discovery of abundance within. Beyond personal enjoyment, the Buddha revealed a joy that blossoms when the heart turns outward: compassion. Acts of kindness carry a pleasure unlike any sensual delight, for they do not fade the moment the senses shift. When we ease another's suffering, a quiet radiance fills the heart. It is not the thrill of indulgence but the warmth of connection, a joy that grows the more it is shared. This higher pleasure arises because compassion dissolves the narrow walls of self. In giving, we discover we are not diminished but expanded. The smile of one who is comforted, the relief in another's eyes, these become mirrors reflecting our own capacity for love. Unlike cravings, which feed on endless taking, compassion nourishes through giving, leaving both giver and receiver uplifted. The Buddha often praised this joy, saying that one who cultivates loving kindness sleeps with ease, wakes with ease, dreams no evil dreams. Compassion soothes the mind, softens the heart, and plants seeds of peace. Even small gestures, a gentle word, a shared meal, a listening ear, carry a pleasure that outlasts the fleeting satisfaction of sense desires. When compassion matures, it becomes not merely an act but a way of being. Then joy arises naturally, not because conditions align, but because the heart itself has become boundless. In this way, compassion reveals a happiness that surpasses self-centered pursuit, pointing toward the unshakable bliss of liberation. The Buddha described the highest joy as beyond the reach of the senses, the bliss of liberation. Unlike pleasures that depend on sights, sounds, tastes, or touch, this joy is unconditioned. It arises not from gaining but from letting go, not from holding but from freedom. When craving ceases, the restless thirst of the heart falls silent, and what remains is peace deeper than any worldly delight. This bliss, known as Nirvana, is not a trance or an escape. It is awakening to reality as it truly is, free from illusion, free from grasping. In this state, pleasure and pain lose their power to bind, for the heart no longer clings to either. The practitioner who tastes this liberation discovers a joy that does not fade with time, a joy untouched by birth and death. The Buddha often spoke of this state with reverence, calling it the highest happiness. It is unshakable because it does not depend on conditions that rise and fall. Just as a mountain stands unmoved by winds, the liberated mind remains steady amidst life's changes. Worldly pleasures hint at happiness but never fulfill it completely. Liberation fulfills the longing at the root of craving, the yearning to be whole, free, at peace. To touch this bliss is to discover that the search outside was always pointing inward, to the freedom already waiting in the depths of one's own being. As the journey through pleasure in the Buddhist path draws to a gentle close, the teachings settle into the heart like the final notes of a calming song. We began with the flame of sensual delight, its brightness both captivating and fleeting. We traced its impermanence, saw the trap of craving, and learned the wisdom of balance through the middle way. We discovered how mindfulness refines even simple joys into gateways of clarity, and how renunciation, far from deprivation, opens a door to serene abundance. Compassion lifted us beyond the self, showing that the sweetest pleasure is found in giving, not grasping. And finally, we reached the unshakable bliss of liberation, the still point beyond craving where true happiness rests. These reflections are not meant as distant ideals, but as living truths to touch in daily life. Every breath, every step, every encounter is an opportunity to notice the nature of pleasure and the freedom hidden within it. When we see joy as impermanent, craving loosens. When we meet moments with mindfulness, delight deepens without binding us. When we turn toward kindness, the heart becomes vast, luminous, and free. In this way, life itself becomes a practice, savoring without clinging, releasing without regret, loving without fear. The Buddha's teaching on pleasure is not a call to abandon the world, but to dwell within it with wisdom, balance, and compassion. May these words leave you with ease, like a soft breeze at dusk. May your heart rest lightly, free from grasping, open to the quiet joy always near. And as the night embraces you, may peace settle gently across your being, carrying you into dreams touched by stillness and light.